big boost coming in for the shipping sector as Cabinet has approved proposals worth 70,000 crores package for the shipping and maritime sector. But what does it mean for the growth outlook going ahead? Let's understand more. And for this, let me welcome Mr. T.K. Ramachandran, Shipping Secretary, joining us on the show. Very good morning, Mr. Ramachandran, and thank you so much for your time. Firstly, the Cabinet approval is through. How significant is this almost 70,000 crore shipbuilding and maritime development package in terms of transforming India's shipping sector? If you can help us with your opening comments.
Yeah. So I'd like to start by saying that I think this is going to be a turning point in the history of in the maritime history of the country, because for the first time we have such a large scheme or a set of schemes which have been announced for the shipping sector. Of course, the announcements were made in the budget, and this gives expression, or this implements what was announced in the budget. And this stems from the vision that we had prepared in 2023, the Maritime Amritkal vision, which was released by the Honorable Prime Minister. And this vision contains a very, very detailed note on how we should take forward shipbuilding. And I think this is a follow-up to that. The important aspect of this move is that for the first time, we are looking at shipbuilding in such a big fashion. Shipbuilding, as you know, is the mother of all the heavy engineering industries. Across the world, some of the biggest companies, shipping companies, have transformed into heavy engineering giants, whether in Korea or Japan or elsewhere. And therefore, what we saw 30 years back happening in the light automotive sector is now going to happen in the heavy engineering sector. It has potential for huge employment, 30 lakh jobs plus, exports, increasing of domestic demand, boosting ancillary industries, and so on and so forth, and investments which we are assessing to be about upwards of 4.5 lakh crores. So this is in shortly the entire package.
Mr. Ramachandran, that sounds good. Let's talk a little bit about this package, because the budget for the same also earmarks 25,000 crore for a Maritime Development Fund. Help us understand how this fund would be deployed and what kind of projects or players will benefit the most from this.
Yeah, actually there are 4 pillars, and one of the pillars is the Maritime Development Fund that you talked about, which looks at financing. And we have all these 4 pillars, look at both the demand and the supply side of this entire sector. And we found that we are in a vicious cycle where financing is one reason why we are not able to build ships in India. We build less than 1% of the world's output, hardly 1 lakh or so, or even 40,000-50,000 a few years back. Therefore, this needed to be boosted. And one reason was that there was lack of finance. And that also was because the tenures were low and the interest rates were very high. So you might have heard of the infrastructure status having been allotted to the shipping sector last week. That announcement was also made. So that brings in a lot of financing on the debt side. On the equity side, the Maritime Development Fund has 2 components. One is the Maritime Investment Fund, and the other is for the Interest Incentivization Fund. The development fund is about 20,000 crores. Half of it will be contributed to by the government. Rest from the ports and private equity funds, for sovereign funds, pension funds, and so on. And this will support equity infusion into shipbuilding, ship yards, ports, waterways, the entire sector, not just shipbuilding, and interest incentivization up to 3%. That is the interest incentivization component of this vertical.
All right, but along with that, Mr. Ramachandran, the ship building financing assistance scheme that has an outlay of over 20,000 crores. What will be the criteria for the shipyards and the companies to assess this support?
So I might as well tell you about the other 2 pillars also. One of them is the shipbuilding financial assistance scheme that you talked about. And the third is for building clusters. Now, the shipbuilding financial assistance scheme aims to bridge the gap between the cost of procuring a ship abroad, and the cost of procuring a ship in India. So this difference we found was about 15 to 20%. And so the assistance tries to assist the shipyard to be competitive by bridging this gap. So this will look at funding them for every ship. If it is below a certain, suppose 100 crores, then it gets a 15% assistance, and over 100 crores gets 25% if it is 20%, and then 25% if it is the green ship, and so on. So this actually subsidizes, we use the word assists the development of the shipbuilding industry in India, and to be help them to be more competitive.
Sounds good on that front, Mr. Ramachandran. If you could just back with first trades, and we still have the shipping secretary, Mr. Ramachandran, with us. Sir, thank you so much for staying on. Let's keep the conversation going. And sir, the overall plan to expand the domestic shipbuilding capacity to 4.5 million gross tonnage, by when do you expect this target to be achieved, and how does this align with India's global maritime ambitions?
So there's just another point that I want to add to the previous point on the shipbuilding financial assistance scheme. That is the credit note. We are giving a shipbreaking credit note, which will promote the circular economy. Which means if you break a ship in India, then we will give you 40% of the value of that ship, which you can exchange against the value of a newly built ship, and up to 5%. So that is important. So coming to your question on the clusters, we hope to be able to at least have 3 or 4 mega shipbuilding clusters across the country, where we don't just have the anchor industry, but also have ancillary industries which support this anchor industry. And one of the reasons why shipbuilding is costly in India is because of the growth or the lack of growth of the ancillary industry. So that will get helped by this third pillar. And the overall scenario where we do not flag more than 1% of the world's ships, we do not own or build ships in India more than 1%. So all these factors will now, I think, get addressed. All these issues will get addressed. We will be able to build more ships, larger ships. More of our cargo will start coming in on our own ships. So of course, this 4.5 million GT that we are proposing to achieve will be after maybe a decade or so, or maybe more than that. But the aim is to at least reach the 10th position by 2030, which means we should be making about 6 lakh GT, which will bring us to the 10th position. Now, countries like China produce something like 30 million GT a year. And therefore, we have a lot of catching up to do. And we hope that within the next 5 years, we will be able to reach that target of the 10th position. And it's important strategically as well as commercially, because we are dependent on the rest of the world for our goods to be imported or exported. So therefore, I think strategically also it will make a difference in the world.
Well, indeed. But Mr. Ramachandran, lastly, with respect to the 20,000 crore earmarked for the Maritime Investment Fund, what's the long-term vision regarding this? Is the target is to make India a regional shipbuilding hub, reduce import dependence, and what will be the plans to capture the export market as well?
So import substitution is just one part. Of course, we want to substitute, as you know, the Atmanirbhar mantra which the Honorable Prime Minister has given. So that is a major factor. But we are also looking at exports very, very closely. And already a large number of our shipyards with the existing dispensations are able to export. Cochin Shipyard, for instance, exported a lot of many ships last year to Europe. Some of the most, the most demanding markets in the world. So we are able to export to them. And therefore, we are hoping that this will also boost our exports to not just Europe, but to many other countries who are all looking towards us for enhancing the shipbuilding capacities in the country.
Right, and lastly, Mr. Ramachandran, with respect to some of the incentives that has been announced with respect to in this particular package, of course, wherein we do understand that there has been an incentive of 15% for the vessels valued below 100 crores and 20% for those above 100 crores. How will this change the cost competitiveness of the Indian-built ships compared to the global peers?
See, the basic difference between the Indian and the foreign ships we found was about 15 to 20%, and that is because of partly labor costs, partly steel costs, partly energy costs, and of course financing costs. So all these things we can address by giving this assistance. We call it assistance, so that we can boost local boost the local industry as well as remove this difference in costs. And this 15% is very we found it is substantial, and at least initially, at least up to 100 crores, 15%, thereafter 20%. But we are looking at 25% for ships which are green. So if the industry and wants to build uh, bigger ships, then there is more subsidy. If it wants to build green ships, there is more subsidy. So we hope that all the uh, shipyards will be able to make full use of this, especially the private shipyards, because they really need to uh, buck up and use this scheme to build locally as well as export.
Ramachandran, appreciate all your points and thank you so much for taking the time out and speaking to us and also hanging on for the break. Really appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Have a good day. Well, on that note, we'll wrap it up on this edition of First Trades from Shrishti, me and the team that put this show together. Thanks so much for tuning in, but you stay on to ET now because buy now, sell now takes all the action ahead.